Hello friends, welcome back to the channel. Boy, do we have a complicated one today with Borderlands 4. We have spent over 30 hours with it, we have finished the campaign, and we really tried to let this one win us over, but it just never did. Between the performance issues, the bugs, and some gameplay systems that feel half-baked, Borderlands 4 comes off as a messy package that's tough to love, even for a group that has played multiple games in the series. Now, that's not to say there isn't fun to be had here. There were moments where things were clicking, where the chaos and the co-op reminded us why the series became so iconic in the first place. But the longer we played, the more the cracks started to show, and the harder it was to convince ourselves to keep coming back for more. That said, I do think that there are friend groups this will work for, and we'll talk about that towards the end of the video. But for now, let's dive into what Borderlands 4 does right, where it falls short, and why it ultimately could not keep us hooked.
Can we not damage this big bullcat guy?
No, he's on our team.
He's on our team, bro.
Holy shit, dude.
You've gotta be kidding me, bro.
I've truly lost the plot.
He's been on our team the whole time.
Literally.
Look at the objectives, bro. Alright, let's dig into ease of play, probably the most important section of this review. A lot of whether Borderlands 4 is going to work for you and your crew starts right here. Ease of play for us covers topics like shared progression, drop-in, drop-out capabilities, and co-op specific bugs and performance issues. And yeah, obviously the launch conversation around this game has been about bugs, performance issues, and Randy Pitchford being, well, honestly, just Randy Pitchford. Let's start with the good because there is good here. Shared progression has been rock solid for us. Story missions, side missions, even the weird open world distractions, all of it carried over without issues. We've seen plenty of comments saying others had problems, but with our squad of 4, it's been smooth. For context, we all started fresh together on day 1. You can create your character and start the story entirely in co-op, an awesome touch by the way. In our sessions, we exclusively do the story together and sprinkle in side content where we feel like it. That setup probably helps, but still, for a giant open world, this is the cleanest implementation of shared progression we've seen in an open world co-op game. Because of that, drop in, drop out is also super seamless, which is a big win. But that is only one side of the coin. The other is, of course, performance and bugs. And let me be clear, we are the co-op bros, not Digital Foundry. We're not here with frame-by-frame analysis of every patch note. We're just here to tell you what it felt like to play together. Gabe and I were on PS5, Christian and Jake were on their PCs. Performance has not been good anywhere, but Christian especially drew the short straw. He's on what we consider to be a mid-range PC, and it's been bad enough that he's half serious about taking Randy up on that refund offer if he's still handing those out. Shaders in particular have been brutal. Every session he starts out with long shader compiles, and sometimes they kick back in mid-game when he was fast traveling to a new area. It has been a major drag on his experience and has slowed down really all of us. We also ran into a few other co-op-specific bugs, not just performance. There have been a couple of instances where the non-host players couldn't damage enemy adds during a boss fight or long enemy wave battles. Particularly when that happened during a boss fight, I died because of it, and yeah, that should never happen. Even if it only happened once, it should never happen. It sucks. We've also had some ugly rubber banding on the gliders. Sometimes it's totally fine, and then sometimes it feels like we're fighting like a total invisible tidal wave. I don't really know what the rhyme or reason is for that. We've also experienced some audio issues where for one player they couldn't hear dialogue if they were in a menu while the others could, which is a very normal thing to do in this game. And we've seen a bug where the audio hitches for non-host players too. During encounters, we've had to quit out because an enemy will get clipped into the environment and we can't finish the encounter, which results in us having to redo that encounter. And one of the major final bosses in the game had an insane visual hitch where the fog was so dense you couldn't see anything during both the cutscene and the fight. I'm not going to show that one because it could be spoiler territory, but it completely ruined a cool moment and we had to quit out and relaunch. So yeah, ease of play is a mixed bag. The core co-op systems are some of the best we've seen in a game this size, but the performance issues hit hard enough to really sour things. If you walk away from this review deciding to wait for a few patches, trust me, I would get that.
Oh god. Chicken Harry, fucking this up.
We can't stop someone's head.
Me too, I'm gonna die.
Yeah, Gabe didn't make it.
Damn it.
I'm the runt. I didn't make it.
Okay, with that big section out of the way, let's explain what exactly is Borderlands 4 in 2025. Because at its core, it's really just more Borderlands, but in an open world. It's still a looter shooter with loot and shoot in all caps. You pick a Vault Hunter, aka your class, mess around with multiple skill trees and flashy powers, and then equip an endless stream of wacky guns that explode out of enemies like a fireworks show. Rinse, repeat, Borderlands. The big difference this time is Borderlands 4 is, like I said, an open world. So along the main story missions, you've got side quests, silos, which are like towers, hidden vault keys that unlock new dungeons, and plenty of other stuff to dot your map. The story setup is simple enough. You arrive on this planet as a prisoner of the Timekeeper. Bad dude, wants to rule everything, has a chokehold on the planet. To take him down, you work through 3 distinct regions, each run by one of his cronies or just this like bad dude that is also evil. Knock them over, the oppressed people of the region join your cause, and eventually it all builds towards the Timekeeper showdown. Mission structure is what you'd expect. Go here, shoot a bunch of bad guys, maybe pull a few levers or defend an area, then square off with the boss. That's the loop, nothing revolutionary, nothing you haven't seen before. Take Borderlands, stretch it across an open world, and that's the gist. I'll leave it there for the loop itself because where I really want to focus is how that loop actually feels in co-op and beyond, which has been the lens from which I've viewed our entire playthrough, and I am actually pretty excited to talk about it.
Dude, there are times in this game where, I heard you check, where I literally do feel like I am playing like the E3 trailer of this game, where I'm just like running through and I see all of your guys' effects, and I'm like punching things with my ability, and it's just nice. There are moments where it does all click.
No, for sure, I agree.
I want to start with the story because we all remember Borderlands 3. That story was so bad it actually distracted us from the gameplay experience. Here I can confidently say that they have reined it in. The writing is not a highlight, but it's at least no longer a distraction. Like in most co-op games, the story is just not going to be the main focus. Depending on how your group plays, you might just talk over most of the dialogue anyway, but I don't think that means that good storytelling doesn't matter in co-op or in shooters. Within the co-op shooter market in particular, you have games like Destiny 2 that has had some legitimately great story arcs. And even something like Space Marines 2 showed that you don't need a ton of dialogue to leave an impression. Borderlands 4 does not really reach that bar. Most of the time, the story is boilerplate and just easy to ignore. That said, there were a few moments that subverted our expectations enough that we actually paused our chatter and paid attention. Those moments were the exception, not the rule, but I can appreciate them. I just wish that the 3 regions liberate the people setup wasn't so samey, but I'm honestly just relieved it wasn't distractingly bad like last time. And some of the side missions delivered more of that classic Borderlands humor and even a few interesting little stories. So all in all, it's a mixed bag, some good, some forgettable when it comes to the story. Now onto the gameplay in co-op. Borderlands has always been what I call a parallel co-op game. Basically, it's where you're technically playing together, but you're not really depending on each other much. You're in the same world, but you're not coordinating like you would in, say, like a raid. That tracks here. The Vault Hunters are a blast to play individually. Speaking as Aman, I love my build variety, I respect multiple times, and I experimented with a ton of different skills, but nothing about my build really leaned into co-op synergy. You could argue that I was supposed to be the brawler that pulled aggro, but that didn't really happen. I was just dashing around and smashing things with hammers and fists while the others unloaded their guns. Even elemental combos never became a real thing for us. The one exception to all this was Christian's Harlow, who could trap enemies in a bubble for us to focus fire on, but that is about it as far as we experience. Now, I'm not saying that as if it's automatically bad, that's kind of subjective. We love parallel co-op games too, Monster Hunter being the prime example, but if co-op is on a spectrum with raid level coordination on the right hand and everyone just doing their own thing on the left, Borderlands 4 sits way over on the left, honestly even past Monster Hunter. And while our group does usually prefer a game on the more coordinated end of that spectrum, a parallel game has their place too. Because when Borderlands 4 clicks, when you're tossing grenades, popping your class abilities, and landing that one gun that just feels so good, it can be peak gaming. That said, movement has been, I think, overhyped by the critics. The grappling hook in particular is a letdown, but if I'm keeping it real, the core combat can still hit pretty hard in Borderlands 4. The game does occasionally push back against that parallel style, mostly through certain enemy types and boss fights. Enemies scale in name and power, so when one of those nastier types showed up, you could see its name and we would actually call that out. Most of the time we were each in our own flow, but those tougher enemies occasionally snapped us out of it and had us focus our attention on that one enemy. As for bosses, man, they are just mostly bad. I'd split them into 2 categories. There are the minor bosses you fight in side missions or along the main story path, They are like genuinely awful. They're basically oversized regular enemies stuffed into tiny, bland arenas with bloated health bars. Truly, this is the kind of bad where we were actively complaining mid-fight about how boring it was. Then there are the major bosses. These are the ones that cap off story arcs or vault hunts, and those are almost all great. The good ones force us to actually pay attention, call out mechanics, and coordinate our strikes. They felt like mini raid moments, and I wish there were more of them. They stood out mostly because they were so few and far between, and even some of those major boss fights were only marginally better than the minor ones. Before wrapping up this section, let's talk about the open world and the level design. I've seen some people calling the open world a quote-unquote revolution, and I think that's a stretch. Is it way better than Borderlands 3's empty zones? Absolutely, but it's still just an open world like 90% of other open world games, and it struggles with verticality to like a crazy degree. The grapple mechanic is not just undercooked in combat, but also in exploration. There are a ton of objectives that are placed vertically above you, but you rarely have the freedom to approach them your own way. You just have to hit the direction button, try to follow the line, and if you go off path, you're gonna hit an invisible wall that stops you. It just feels super limiting and kind of stupid, honestly. It's not one of the better implementations of an open world. Most of it is just room-to-room shooting galleries, and while the combat is fun, like I said, if you just are doing that over and over again with pretty much nothing in between, it can start to feel like a slog. The worst offenders of this are the story arc finale missions, which often just turn into seemingly endless firefights that drag on forever. We got to the point in our time playing where we realized we could just sprint past those enemies to the objective, and we did, which is never a good sign. So yeah, you can see why I called this review complicated. I think the combat, the class design, and the guns are still great, but the story, the enemies, and the bosses are pretty mixed, and the open world and level design are weak. Minor bosses are terrible. So yeah, overall, pretty messy package.
Bob Hanta.
Look at me now, look at me now, look at me now, look at me now. See, I got robot eyes, see?
Oh, that's sick.
See what I'm talking about?
Guys,
Oh yeah, that is sick actually.
just tell him what he wants to hear.
He'll leave you alone if you just say yes. Christian, get out of your menu, get out of your menu. Ready, right here.
Oh, yeah, you look very tormented.
When I really think about it though, that messy package is kind of what Borderlands is at this point. It can always be fun, but it can also be majorly flawed. We're a long way away from the highs of Borderlands 2, and every game since has struggled to recapture that magic. And look, it's not that we didn't give it a fair shot. We put in over 30 hours, finished the campaign, and did plenty of side content. The problem is, Borderlands 4 is just too messy to earn any extra time beyond that. Some people are gonna say that the real magic of Borderlands happens after the credits roll, once you're diving into in-game builds, harder runs of bosses, and the loot grind. And I get that, a part of me did want to stick around and see more, but the truth is, the rest of the crew was even more burned out by the end than I was. The performance issues, the bugs, the uneven gameplay, it was death by 1,000 little cuts. And when your co-op group understandably checks out by the credits, a game like this kind of loses its soul. Borderlands 4 just isn't strong enough to carry itself in a solo session. The fun lives in the chaos and the laughter with your friends. When that's gone, what's left just starts to feel very empty. That said, as I mentioned, I do think there's a type of friend group that this will click for. I'm aware that outside of performance problems, this game has been generally well received. If what you're looking for is a game where you can hop in, hang out, shoot some bad guys, and just chat about whatever, I think this might work for you. Sure, you could do that in a dozen free-to-play games, but then you're dealing with battle passes and microtransactions and a maze of currencies. Or you could play something like Destiny or Warframe, but then you've got to catch your friend up on where they are in the story, what the meta is, and what content they don't own. Borderlands 4 is unique in that it's just a game. You buy it, you play it, and you don't have to worry about all that extra baggage. It's a self-contained world where you and your friends can hang out for a long time if you want. Don't get me wrong, it's not the savior of modern gaming or anything along those standards. There's still paid DLC and a bunch of deluxe editions, but at its core, right now as we're watching this, it's just a complete game, and that is becoming rare. So if that's what you and your friends want, a place to hang out, shoot stuff, and laugh together, Borderlands 4 can deliver that. But for us, it just never clicked enough to keep us coming back, and with so many great games coming out this year, we're ready to move on. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching. This was a script I really had to chew on before getting it right, so I hope it helped you out and was worth the wait. If it was, please consider liking or subscribing. That makes a huge difference for our small channel. If you want to support us further, consider joining our Patreon, and shout out to our patrons for everything they do for Gabe and I. But either way, we're going to catch you all on the next episode of The Co-op Bros.